All right, let's just get to the point. Who pays for closing costs and how much is it going to cost me? Well, great question. And the only reason this is a tricky question isn't because national data is lacking on averages for these figures, but because two people will often use one term to describe something completely different. And that sounds philosophical, but we can't fully answer this question until we first accurately define the terms we're talking about here. So for now, let's first just define the strictest definition of the term closing costs. So closing costs are the portion on a HUD or closing statement that tally up the administrative costs associated with title search, title insurance, recording that transfer of title, cost of drafting the closing documents, and the localized tax for transferring the title, sometimes referred to as tax stamps. Okay, so how much does that narrowly defined form of closing costs actually cost? Well, as with everything else, the actual cost depends on where you're from. Okay. Now, Indiana has probably, I think it's the lowest average in the country with an average cost of like $1,900. Okay. North Carolina, where I'm from, the closing cost average falls around $2,800, while South Carolina, closing costs can range from $3,000 to $4,000. Okay. So other than maybe places like Washington, D.C., the point here is that closing costs in their true definition really don't cost that much, nor would they actually even impact the financial integrity of a deal with these numbers. The broader question here is, I think, with the larger implication about, well, what are the actual selling costs of a transaction? So now we're talking, forget about closing costs. And usually when people are talking about closing costs, this is what they are actually talking about. What's the true cost to sell my house? Well, selling costs include all these little ticky-tack closing costs, but also encompasses the larger ticket items. So let's start with the biggest one, realtor fees. The rule of thumb here is 3% for selling agent and 3% for the buyer agent. Okay, so on a $500,000 house, realtor fees alone are $30,000, and that's just the realtor commissions. Okay, that's not part of the true definition of what closing costs are. So, what are the other selling costs here? Well, we've got a full detail of this like on our website, but just as a little shorthand list here, here's the bare minimum without touching things like landscaping, property repairs, things like that. Okay. So one is that, I mean, you need to get your house ready for showings, then moving out and getting your belongings transported, right? Well, we need to do what's called staging for the home as well. I mean, this is the cost of manicuring your home with furniture and decorations to really optimize home value. And it can literally increase the value of your home by about 5%. So don't forget this one. So some of those things like you can maybe do without, right? But next, like let's get into the real ones, right? That you cannot deal without. And that's start with holding costs. So unless you sell the home the same exact day that you move into your new home, or you crash with your parents for a bit, right? One of those two, is that you need to pay for double mortgage, double the insurance, you need to pay double the property taxes. You need to pay storage costs if for whatever reason you're moving into a partial place like a hotel or whatever else until your next property closes, whatever it might be. So all of those things in between, we'll call those holding costs. Next is, then we get into the marketing material. So you need a lot of people to get interested in buying, right? Well, that's going to cost you photography, videography, especially after COVID and things like that. And whatever's going to bring the most amount of eyes onto your home. And because that's going to yield the best results. And so part of that is, also going to be paying for the actual MLS listing as well, if for whatever reason you're trying to FSBO a property, which we don't recommend. So now we get into the transaction items. So How about a home warranty? Well, you can watch our video on home warranties, but regardless if a buyer ever wanted to pay out of pocket for this, this is really just to protect the seller for misrepresentation on the property. So that's why usually always the seller's the one who pays for the home warranty, because it's to protect you, right? It's to protect the seller. And the mortgage prepayment penalty. So this, you've got to look in your own docs. We don't have those in front of us right now, but that's usually somewhere between 1% or somewhere around 1% of the mortgage value. Okay. Next, property surveys, which can be ordered by the bank for the buying, party, especially from the buyer's bank. And then finally, we now just include that little line item for the true closing costs for tax stamps, title search, whatever else. So in total, the national average for selling a home, it's about $31,308, I think is the exact number, or somewhere it's actually like about 11%. Okay. So that's about 10 times more than the statewide average for the proper definition of closing costs, okay? And that doesn't even include the cost of repairing a home after a contingent offer comes back with a negative inspection and things like that. Hey, is any of this helpful? If so, give me a quick like and subscribe so I can just know to keep making videos just like this one. All right, so who pays closing costs? Well, that's negotiable. But in hot markets like this one, buyers are offering to cover the traditional definition of closing costs. But as you can see, that's not really helpful. It's not a super helpful gesture if you're a seller, right? I mean, that's awesome if someone's willing to cover the cost of like title search and attorney's fees and, whatever the quote unquote closing costs are. But, covering 1% of the home value in closing costs, it doesn't really deserve a trophy. Okay. The bigger question here is who's going to pay for these big ticket selling costs? Like, it's not called buying costs. It's called selling costs. And that's for really good reason. So these are the costs to sell a house, the realtor's fees, transfer taxes, holding costs, all those other items that we already discussed. So unless you're really getting your buyer to cover half of the double mortgage and inspection contingencies, then this is on you, the seller. So if you want a full breakdown, check out the link in the description, and that'll take you over to a pretty thorough description of it all. If you just want to skip through paying those costs, and then reach out to a high-paying investor like us, right? It's not just us, but in your local market, whoever that is, then reach out to them. I mean, we might be able to just buy it for market value minus these costs so that you'd be paying out anyway. And that just means just skipping the listing process and going straight to closing for the same amount that you would have pocketed anyway by listing it with a realtor. So anyway, if this is helpful at all, just reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions. If not, check out that link below in the description and check out some more aspects of our selling costs.